Hi, my name is Caitlin, and I just wanted to record a video to share my experience giving birth and being pregnant with twins. So I have two babies, a son and a daughter, boy-girl twins, who are 6 months old almost. And when I was pregnant with them, I found watching other people's experiences with their births, having multiples, to be really helpful in preparing for my twin birth. In all of the videos that I watched, I did not find an experience quite like the one I ended up having, so I thought it might be helpful to kind of add to the pile with another experience giving birth and being pregnant to twins. So here it goes. So I found out that I was pregnant with twins when I was about 8 or 9 weeks. I had my first midwife appointment when I was about 8 weeks pregnant, and during that time I relayed to my midwife that I was having a lot of cramping and I was really nervous. Every time I would be at work, I would have cramps that felt very much like my period was coming, and I had never been pregnant before, so I just assumed that it meant that I was gonna miscarry, so I would constantly be going to the bathroom and checking and expecting to see bleeding, and I never really had any bleeding. I had a little bit of dark brown spotting, but nothing major at all. And so hearing this, my midwife was gracious enough to let me go in to get an early ultrasound around 8 or 9 weeks. They didn't do ultrasounds at their practice, even though there were doctors there. So I went to an outside clinic, so I had to wait probably, I think, about a week to get an appointment there. So it was actually Halloween day that my husband and I went to the ultrasound clinic, and we were so nervous going into the appointment. I think, went to lunch before but couldn't eat anything. I just kept feeling like something was going to be wrong, like there wasn't going to be a baby in there, that like my body was just tricking me. And so we went to the appointment, and as soon as I laid down on the table and the ultrasound technician put the probe onto my stomach, she kind of looked at me, and the screen was faced in a way where I could see it, but I was laying down, so it was hard to see, and I could kind of really only see half of it. And she kind of looked at me and gave me a smile, and I was like, oh, there's the baby, because I could see one of them. And she said, yeah, there's one baby and two babies. And I just remember feeling in complete and total shock. Going into becoming pregnant, I kind of was thinking about the possibility of having twins and thinking it would be like a really fun experience and really cool, but I never actually thought it would happen to me. So that whole appointment, my heart was just racing, and I really don't remember very much of it because I was just absolutely shocked, as was my husband. So it was really fun that day. We actually went straight to Target and bought our first baby outfit. We don't live close to any of our family, so we FaceTimed them and first just showed them an ultrasound picture of one baby, and then said, oh, and here's the other baby, thinking that they would get that they were twins, but no one did. And then we finally showed them the picture of both of them together, and everyone was so excited, so shocked, so happy. So after that, at my practice, our midwives could not carry on seeing twin pregnancies for some reason. I know some people have had the experience of having midwives for twins, but my midwife was not able to, so I had to transfer to another doctor in that practice, and I really liked him. I had a good experience, particularly during my pregnancy. He was very attentive and answered all my questions and entertained all of my crazy research and ideas about things that could go wrong. So I saw him throughout the pregnancy, and I also saw a maternal fetal medicine specialist for growth scans every 4 weeks until I think around 34 or 35 weeks. I started going for weekly biophysical profiles. So I honestly had a pretty uncomplicated pregnancy. I didn't have any issues with gestational diabetes. I had some high blood pressure intermittently throughout, but I've always had high blood pressure when it comes to going to the doctor. Like, I think I have like white coat syndrome or something. So like nothing that was ever like something to where if they were to take my blood pressure right after, it would go down. However, I did experience a preterm labor scare around 30 to 31 weeks. Basically, I had what I would consider to be Braxton Hicks contractions, perhaps, like throughout my pregnancy from probably about 24 weeks, where it didn't hurt, they didn't feel like cramps or anything. Sometimes it would be like a light cramping, but more than anything, I could just notice my stomach tightening and getting looser and tightening and loosening. And I mentioned it to my doctor, and he kind of just like played it off. And then around 30 weeks, I actually am pretty sure I lost my mucus plug. Obviously, I won't go into any graphic detail there, but I was experiencing a little bit more intense cramping at that time. So I went in to get checked out, and they said I was maybe just like a fingertip dilated, and they kept me for a few hours, nothing changed. They did a fetal fibronectin test, I think it's called, where they swabbed my cervix area and looked for a certain protein or something like that to indicate whether it would be likely that I was going into preterm labor, and they found that it was negative. So there was a very low chance that I was actually going into labor. They sent me home, and then I went back in about a week later for just a routine doctor's visit, and at that time my doctor checked my cervix for dilation. Sorry, I'll probably have some babies joining me here intermittently. He checked my cervix for dilation just to make sure that I didn't have any changes, and he said I was still a fingertip to 1 centimeter dilated, but at that time I was very thinned out. He, I think, estimated I was about 60 to 80% effaced, and at that point I was almost 32 weeks. So he said he would feel more comfortable if I went in to get monitored again to labor and delivery. I went to labor and delivery and hooked me up to the monitors again. I think I forgot to mention that even the last time I was having consistent contractions, so those tightenings and loosenings that I had been feeling for quite a while were showing up as contractions on the contraction monitor in labor and delivery. Given that and the effacement, he really wanted to monitor me overnight, so I was given steroid shots just in case I were to go into labor and they couldn't stop it. And then I was also put on Procardia for the next 3 or so weeks, so until I was like 34, 35 weeks at home. So I just spent one night in the hospital there, and again, I didn't have any cervical change, so they just sent me home and just said to take it easy. My doctor never really believed in bed rest. He said that it really wasn't that helpful, but after that, I kind of put myself on bed rest in a way. Like, I just tried to take it really easy and not do anything to, like, elevate my heart rate or stimulate my body in such a way that might bring on preterm labor. I really didn't have any other issues beyond that. Throughout my pregnancy, the babies would shift a lot in their positions. My daughter was baby A, and she would mostly be at the bottom, and my son was baby B, and he would mostly be at the top. And probably around 28 to 32 weeks, somewhere around there, is when she went head down and she stayed head down, and that was really helpful. Helped relieve my anxiety quite a bit. However, my son maintained pretty much transverse. Every once in a while when I would go in for a scan, he would be like kind of head down, but just in the position that he was in, with her kind of in the middle, like down and engaged into my pelvis, and he was just kind of like over top of her. So it was really up in the air to me. I didn't really know whether or not I would be getting a C-section or having a vaginal birth. I knew I wanted to try for a vaginal birth, but given that he was transverse, I knew that it was a possibility that even if she came out vaginally, he would be a C-section if he turned breech. So yeah, I really didn't have any issues in my pregnancy that were major. So towards the end of my pregnancy, I did develop some high blood pressure. I had been monitoring it at home and at the office, and I had noticed that my top number was always within normal range, but my bottom number started to creep into the 90s to 100s range pretty regularly, and that made me a little bit nervous. I will also say that by like 35, 36 weeks, I felt absolutely done being pregnant. I was huge. I was uncomfortable. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't eat. And I'd also done some of my own research and found some research articles that suggested that, you know, for most doctors with twins, they tend to want to induce you or give you a C-section around 38 weeks. That's kind of the target. But there is some newer research that I found that suggested that actually like 38 weeks and beyond can be somewhat dangerous for twins, and it can be associated with a slight increase in stillbirth. So I kind of mentioned that to my doctor, and along with the high blood pressure, he just said he would talk to the maternal fetal medicine specialist. Previously, we had just planned to either hopefully for me to go into labor or for me to be induced at 38 weeks. But my doctor called me right after my 36-week appointment and said that he talked to the maternal fetal medicine specialist and that they were on board and thought it would be a good idea to induce me at 37 weeks given the high blood pressure, and he kind of tended to agree with the newer research that it's some people believe that it might be safer to induce twins before 38 weeks.